Hello, people. Unity here. Boy, do I have something to talk about today. Newsflash. Our government is broke. I don't mean like running out of money. I don't mean like the $34 trillion deficit. I mean the government is really, really broke. And here's the dirty little secret. It always has been. The government's broke. Let me explain myself. The government of the United States of America does not produce income. Well, with the rare and singular exception of the Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam produces electricity for a region, and the government actually gets paid for producing that electricity and distributing it. So, other than that, and that's just a little bitty, not even a drop in the bucket of the U.S. budget on an annual basis. It doesn't produce enough to even count. The government does not have any money. The government takes money from you and from me. And even if you're a person who thinks, well, I didn't pay any taxes last year. I didn't pay any. I got a refund last year. They're still taking money from you in the form of fees. The person you work for, they're taking money from them that could be used for raises. And so, believe me, if you're making minimum wage, the government's taking money from you. They're taking money from everybody. And that wouldn't be so bad if they used the money judiciously, if they used the money wisely, if they didn't fight useless wars. I talk about that George W. Bush guy. How many billions and billions and billions did he waste because Saddam Hussein threatened his dad? I mean, all those people really that were injured and had their legs they sent those soldiers over there in Humvees that weren't armor plated, and a lot of them had their legs blown off and so forth. See, we the people would have never voted to send any American soldier to Iraq at that time because it wasn't necessary, and it actually made the Middle East worse. It gave us ISIS. It gave us Iran on steroids. And Iraq is still a mess right now today after we spent billions and billions and billions of hundreds of billions of dollars. It's a mess. Even our war against Afghanistan and the Taliban. 20 years or approximately fighting the Taliban, and billions and billions and many lost limbs and lost lives fighting the Taliban. And guess who's in control of Afghanistan after all of those billions of years and lost lives? The Taliban still in charge. We the people, don't assume that the people in Washington know more than you do. They don't. They have proven it. They prove it every day. I gave you all an assignment. I told you to get a pen and paper and write 34 trillion in numerical value. Write it down. And I made a bet. Most of you don't know how many zeros to put in 34 trillion. Well, tear that assignment up. I just heard our deficit is now at 35 trillion. If you don't institute term limits, and I'm talking about this election, it really works great in the primaries when you have these old people like McConnell, who's been there, Mitch, been there way too long. You got Schumer, who's been there way too long. And there's some more. I'm going to get the whole list and Tell you about all these people who've been there 20, 30, 40 years. Two. No one should get more than 2 terms. You have to refuse to vote for anyone seeking a third term. And then you have term limits. See, you don't have to wait for them to pass the law because you will die waiting for them to pass the law. They're not going to do an amendment to the Constitution to say, oh, senators and House of Representatives can only serve 2 terms. They're not going to do that. You have to do it, and you have the power to do it. All you have to do is get a little bit of unity and stop voting for the incumbents. That's what AETI stands for. Anyone except the incumbent. And we've gone over that. It's not just anyone. Someone with common sense and someone willing to do the will of we, the people. The government is broke. They take our money and then they waste it. And they spend it in ways that we would have never authorized. They don't have any money. There's no such thing as a free cell phone program. There's no such thing as free health care for all. What do you think? The nurses and the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals are going to stop charging? That would be free health care for all. No, they're not going to stop. We're going to work and get taxed, and we're going to pay for it. There's no such thing as free. And loan forgiveness. I mean, this isn't a Democrat or a Republican thing right here. I'm just an umpire. I'm just a referee. I'm going to call a ball, a strike a strike. You know what loan forgiveness is? Your bank calls you up and says, I've made enough interest off of your payments, and I'm going to forgive your loan. You no longer have to pay anymore on the principal. That's loan forgiveness. But that's not what the government is talking about in these student loans. They're not talking about the institutions who lended the money, They're not talking about those institutions. They're talking about you, the taxpayer, paying for somebody else's loan. That's what they're talking about. I'm getting too excited. People don't understand that the government is broke. When the government says, oh, yeah, we're going to I hate to see children that are hungry. But there's no such thing as free lunch. Taxpayers are just paying for other children's lunch. And maybe, the innocent children need more nutrition and more power to them. But let's call it what it is. It's taxpayer paid lunch. It's not free lunch. There's not free lunch. There's not free book rental. There's not free tuition. The only way you can have free tuition is if the teachers and the janitors and all the people involved in bringing you school work for free. And I'm telling you, teachers don't get paid enough, but they do not work for free. There is no such thing as free lunch. We the people, are paying for everything. And you may not think you are, but you're paying in a fee. You're paying in not getting a raise because the owner of your company had to pay his taxes. You are paying. And that's the way it's always been. So when somebody says something about free, or the government's going to do this, or the government's going to do that, or the government doesn't have any money. They can only take money from you and the company you work for. And let me pop this bubble about, if we only made the rich pay their fair share. Well, that has been used as a tool of manipulation for so long. Why aren't the rich paying their fair share? Because the people who get up and say, we're going to make the rich pay their fair share, are the same people who write the laws that don't make the rich pay their fair share. I'm not saying that rich people should be taxed more. I'm saying that the people are manipulating you with that little carrot. They're going to tell you that they're going to make the rich pay their fair share, but then they're not going to do anything about it. See, you see what I'm saying? They like having the issue of the perception that rich people don't pay enough. Now, I'm not an economist, so I don't know how much a person who makes $100 million a year should be paying in taxes. I'm not going to get into that right now. That's not what this is about. This is about term limits. And then we can get everything straightened out. If we can get term limits straightened out, we can get everything else straightened out. We can get a fair tax code. I happen to think a flat tax is fair. A flat tax, and even if it's categorized or somewhat progressive, like a guy making $100 million does pay a little higher percentage than the guy making $100,000. I'm not an economist, but I'm going to tell you this: when they tell you, "Oh, we're going to make the rich pay," they're just trying to manipulate you to get your vote. Some of those people saying that have been in Congress for 30 years and never written a bill that made the rich pay their fair share. That's just a talking point for an election to try to divide you, to make you think, oh, we hate the rich people and the rich people hate, it's just another one of those divide and conquer things. Democrat, Republican, poor, rich, middle class. You guys keep them fighting among themselves, and they will never notice how rich we're getting. I told you, they get 7 million on the average. If you average it out, lobbyists give Washington, D.C. legislators, the senators and the House of Representatives, about $7.5 million per person. And then they also do insider trading, but that's another story. But they all get rich, okay? They get rich. And I want to tell you something. Throughout the history of mankind, speaking the truth to power has always seemed controversial. That's why when we talk about term limits, some people get kind of nervous. Some people get kind of, ooh, term limits. Yes, I know you have your favorite senator, your favorite congressperson, but 2 terms and they need to go. I know you might like your mayor, but 2 terms and your mayor needs to go. Your governor needs to go. Your state representative needs to go. Your state senator needs to go. 2 and you're through. 2 and you're through. Say it again. 2 and you're through. Okay? Listen, term limits may seem controversial, but they're not. Gallup has been polling voters for decades, and 70% of all voters say they want term limits, but we don't have them because we haven't instituted them. We haven't implemented them. And we're going to now. AETI is going to implement term limits. Anyone except the incumbent. No one gets a vote for a 3rd term. I don't care. We should shut down Mitch McConnell. We should shut down Chuck Schumer. There's a whole bunch of them. Nancy Pelosi. I don't care who they are. They shouldn't get a 3rd term. Doesn't matter. Maybe they're a good guy. Maybe they're a brilliant woman. It doesn't mean they should get a 3rd term. They should go to Washington, do their little time, and then come back and live under the laws that they have created. Live under what we, the people, have to live under. Live in the crime streets that we have to traverse just to get to work every day. See, then you'll see change in this country. Term limits is the tool for change. And 80 is all about term limits. We don't care about the Democrats or the Republicans. We are the correctocrats. Say it again. Correctocrats. We believe in correct policy for our neighborhood, our city, our state, and for this country. And we know what correct policy is better than the people in Washington. Get that through your head. These people are not brilliant. They are not brilliant. They are not smart. They are not smarter than you. Listen, they locked themselves a few years back in a room for a week or so and said they were going to work on the budget deficit. They called it the sequester. They came out and said, duh, oh, we can't figure anything out. You know what? They could take 10 cents out of every dollar and not stop one freaking program. But 10 cents out of every dollar would have started to put a dent in the deficit. There are many other brilliant economists who could have given them plans to start reducing this ridiculous deficit, but they didn't do it because they don't like solutions. Remember from a previous episode of We the People? They don't like solutions. They run from solutions. They like issues so they can manipulate you into voting for them. As long as the issues exist, they can manipulate your vote. Okay? Remember that. They don't want solutions. They want issues. They want persistent, consistent, year after year issues. Because then they know how to bring out the base. You know what they call? I call you We the People. They call you base. How does it feel to be called base? That sounds like the bottom. But listen, I want to tell you, we the people have got to take back control of this country, and we take it back without marching, without rioting, without violence, without even bad words. We don't even have to raise our voice. All we have to do is refuse our vote. We will get Washington's attention instantly. You let Chuck Schumer not be reelected. You let anybody on the right that's just entrenched in their district, let them not get reelected. After they put in a $20 million campaign, or after they were so powerful that no one would even enter the primary against them. You know, they think primarying a senator or primarying a congressman is a punishment. They think they own the seat so much that, how dare you primary me? They think they own the seat, but you do. The people in the big cities, the people in the small towns, the people on the West Coast, the East Coast, the people who live in the North, the people who live in the South, they own the seats. We, the people, own the seats. And if you don't start thinking that way and believe it and start exercising your authority, I don't know if we can pull out of this nosedive. The government of the United States is better served by the wisdom of the crowd. We would not have a $34 trillion deficit. We would have solved that a long time ago. Don't you think? And now it's 35 trillion. And when they do the budget, and you know, every year, what's this stupidity about, oh, we're going to shut down the government, or one side, we're going to shut down the government if we don't raise the debt ceiling. You know what? They never talk about lowering the debt ceiling, do they? Watch, they're going to go through that same lame exercise again, both parties fighting over the budget, neither one of them saying, hey, let's get together and lower this thing. Because, why do I keep talking about the $1 trillion deficit? Because 34 turns to 35, turns to 36, turns to 37, 38, 40. Wait a minute. At one point, the interest on the deficit is going to be more than they can extract from you to pay it. Let me say that again. The interest on the deficit can get to be higher than all the taxes that they can collect. We're already paying more for interest on the deficit than we are for national defense. Let that sink in. But my time is up. Don't be manipulated. There's an election going on, a campaign going on. Call balls, balls, call strikes, strikes. If the left says something or does something wrong, say you're wrong. If the right does something wrong, says something wrong, say you're wrong, okay? Don't be a club member, a dumb club member. I was born a Democrat, I'll die a Democrat. I was born a Republican, everybody in my family's been... Forget that crap. Be a correctocrat. And let's start having some correct policy for we the people. I'll see you next time on AETI.